Today we will talk about what is this called? Spring Boot and REST services and Hibernate and Lombok annotations. I already taught you yesterday's class what is annotation, how to create your own annotation, uh, and I told you right what is annotation. Annotation is metadata, that is data about the data. It is coming from Java 1.5 version onwards. How to write a annotation? We can create your own interface at annotated with interface, and after that we can use at the rate retention policy and target. At the rate retention policy tells you that when, like in a runtime or compile time, while class loading. Whereas in target it will tells you that you want me to use this annotation on the method level or class level or variable level. That we yesterday we spoke about all the related stuff. Now yesterday again recap this session. Okay, yesterday's class. Okay, yesterday again we were talking about the stereotype annotations. Stereotype annotations are three types. One is like um, component. Under component we have a controller service repository. In controller service repository and component, we can use class level or interface level. Coming to the auto-wire annotation, we were talked about auto-wire and qualifier. And miscellaneous annotations at the rate value, at the rate bin, at the rate primary, at the rate post constructor, at the rate pre-destroy. These are the things actually yesterday's class we were taught, but I didn't upload that videos since I was in my hometown. I am in hometown. Uh, Now what I'll upload that videos today, maybe time permits, so that you can also relate to the same session. Okay. Now today, what we will talk about? We will talk about some more annotations that is might be Spring Boot and REST services and all. Spring Boot and all concept is not completed. What I'm going to say, we can talk about annotation. After that, what we will do, we will talk about the theory. Okay. Now we will talk about Spring Boot annotation. Spring Boot create annotation. In Spring Boot annotation, only one annotation is there. What is that? At the rate Spring Boot application. Spring Boot application is the one annotation. They are minimizing all the annotations. They are writing only one annotation, that is Spring Boot application. Spring Boot application, under Spring Boot application, we have three annotations. At the rate component scan, at the rate enable auto configuration, at the rate configuration. Configuration. Okay, what does this mean? Each and everything, maybe we will talk. Okay, at the rate component, it will scan the, it will scan the base package and all its sub package, all its sub package, package beans. Beans means maybe you can call it as object and give it to the context. That means application context or bean factory. What is that component scan will do? For example, your application is com.open org dot. This is your base package. Under that we have a model. Under that we have a service. Under that we have a controller. Under that we have a exception. Under that we have a config. Under that we have a advice. These are the packages is there. What is the base package for all? Base package is com.org. In that at the rate component scan, if you're adding a com.org, then what it will do, it will scan your base package or sub packages beans and give that beans to context. Give that beans to context. That is the at the rate component annotation. Coming to the enable auto configuration. Springboard, you no need to add any configuration. Default, they have added so many configurations. Whenever you're starting the application, you no need to worry about anything, Tomcat port number or default configurations and all. Spring Boot will automatically load the all default configurations. It's enable auto configuration. What it will enable? It will enable the default configuration. It will enable the default configuration. Enable the default configurations. Okay. What happened? Yes, someone is okay. This enable the default configuration. Now at that configuration, I don't want default configuration. I want to override R. I want to add some more configurations. Then we can use at the rate configuration annotation. That means custom configuration you want. For example, default port number of Tomcat 8080, which is provided from Spring Boot. That is enable auto configuration will take care. But I don't want port number 8080, I want 8181. Then we need to go with configuration, or you can change your configuration. Application.yaml file also will change it. But some other configuration, I don't want to use default configuration. We can use your custom configuration, or you can override your old configuration using that property, particular property, or at the rate configuration annotation. These are the three annotations there in the Spring Boot. Now coming to the REST services annotations. Annotations. REST service annotations are, before going to the REST services, I'll tell you one thing, that is CRUD. C means create, R means retrieval, U means update, D means delete. Update, delete, correct. Now, what I mean to say, I want to create the record in the database, or you want to create something, then we need to use in the REST services, which mapping you need to use at the rate post mapping. Post mapping for create. I want to retrieve the data from the database. Then we have to use at the rate get mapping. This should be big letter, okay? Because annotation should be always interface only, no? That's why G should be get mapping. Get mapping. And retrieval is what? You can use get mapping. You can use what happened. Okay. get mapping. Here you have to use post mapping. Here get mapping. Get mapping for retrieve the data from the database. Maybe you can use retrieval for get mapping, create for post mapping, and update they are using put mapping. Create, put, put mapping. For delete, they're using or delete or removal, they're using delete mapping. Delete mapping. For partial update, partial update. What is the partial update means? Partial update means, for example, we have a employee, we have employee ID, employee name, ID, EMP name, EMP address, EMP phone number, EMP classes, something like department and all. But I want to change his name. While joining, his name is like Thomas Alva Edison, but his name should be like Thomas Edison Alva, something, right? Then I want to change this particular element. Then what they are using? They are using, if you want to update particular element, you need to use PATH, patch mapping, patch mapping. For create REST services annotations, they are using post. For retrieval, get. For update, put. For delete, delete. For fetching, for updating the particular element, that means, for example, employee name or employee address or phone number, only one value if you want to update, then are not one value, partial values. In update, you can use patch mapping instead of put. Coming to the next term, while sending the request, while sending the request, they are using request mapping. Request, request, request body. While getting the response, response, they are using at that request body response. But it's not worry, but anyway, response body. And I want to take particular element from the URL or request. Want to take particular element from the postman or URL. You can use at the rate path variable. Path variable. I want to fetch the particular element. Now, while writing a RESTful web services, right? Then how they are defining? They are defining two more annotations called at the rate REST controller and at the rate request mapping. The name only there, they are mapping with particular request. REST controller means that controller is a combination of controller plus response body. REST controller means combination of okay, REST controller. What happened? REST controller means combination of controller plus response, but the both combination they are named as a REST controller. Then request mapping how to handle. For example, if you're going to the, for example, if you're going to the, where is that Amazon? See, wow, okay, okay, okay. Amazon, Amazon India. See, you're opening this Amazon. See, Amazon.in is the common for any URL. See, https www.amazon.in. For example, if you're opening this, Amazon in is common. If you're opening this, Amazon in is common. If you're opening like kitchen diagram, Amazon in is common. If it is something, Amazon in is common. If you're like, I don't want to this, then you go for like, this one, Amazon.in common, right? Wherever we are going to your application, what is your base path, but base URL or request URL? This is Amazon.in, right? This particular URL you have to add in the request mapping. Instead of mapping each and every time what they are using, this Amazon.in is the within the request mapping. Remaining things they can put into the maybe get mapping, put mapping, post mapping, delete mapping, or patch mapping. For example, I want to create a record, that means user, then they might use post mapping. Now all things is a get, right? Get, they'll put like get mapping. Like that they will write internally this application. But all URLs, what is the common that they will mention in the request mapping. That means, see, we have to mention how to mention your request mapping at the rate. For example, we have an employee control class, employee controller. They can write here. You have to mention at the rate REST controller at the rate request mapping of amazon amazon.com. They will put like that. Now, wherever you're using get mapping inside, put mapping inside, or put delete, patch, update, or put delete all mappings, it will come from each and every request is coming from this one. It's not going out of that. That way, they might implement it the internally. Okay, not only this side, any side. For example, you can go to the IRCTC. Mm, See, clicking on the IRCTC, irctc.co.in is the common, that is the request mapping. Okay, now we can go ahead with anywhere. Bus IRCTC, maybe this is different actually. Then it's going to the different control. For example, if you're going to the here inside only, for example, from location, what is called BLR, Bengaluru, and Chennai, Chennai. I'm traveling to, for example, 18. Okay, I'm clicking on that. Now, yes or no, something they'll tell. Okay. Now, if you see, some sites will be there. Like, no trains. What? How come? No direct trains available. Okay. Something message is coming. See, now if you're saying irctc.co.in only, you're going to the another screen also. Okay. Like that, whatever is there in the default default request, it's coming to the next one. Okay. Now, I'm not going to teach you guys. Now we completed Spring Core annotation. What is called Spring Core annotations. Spring Core. VCR REST service.
Okay, what if we are not giving that at the rate rest controller means that itself is not reaching that controller when
Correct.
we are hitting.
Ah, correct. If you're not giving a direct REST controller, that request where to go, they don't know. That is the itself actually they're stuck. I'll teach you, don't worry. While maybe postman I'll open, I'll tell you so that we can relate. Okay. Yeah. Now we have a different methods. For example, get, post, put, delete, patch. Okay, this is enough for us. You don't need to worry about optional links and all. See, for example, I want to retrieve some data. Then you are getting get to mathway, you are adding. What is the default? I told Amazon.com or irctc.com you are adding, and you're trying to hit this, but that particular method is not there. Then anyway, our application is not started. That is the reason it's giving. If it is not there, it is not going to that particular controller only. It will tells like it's not having any methods or it's not. Well, first of all, it will give this kind of error only, not bad request, something like that. It will come. Okay. While writing a POC, I'll tell you. Maybe within from Monday onwards, maybe I'll start writing POC so that you can understand how you're sending the request, how to get the response, and this is the, for example, you're sending the request. This is ID, name, and address. And while sending, you can send this button. Then automatically response will get based on that. It's saving into the database. That all I will show you how to save the database, how to retrieve the database, and how to update the database and all the things I'll show you. As of now, what you told that is correct. Whenever we are sending the request, you are not adding at the REST controller. That means this request, they don't know where to go. Okay, then they skip it. It won't go. It aren't allowed to that particular application. That is the one thing. Okay, now we have completed Spring Core done, MVC REST services done, and Spring Boot also done. Done means Spring Core theory done, RESTful MVC theory done, but RESTful Spring Boot theory is not completed. Only annotations completed. Only annotations completed. Now we will talk about at the rate. Sorry, LOMB. Okay, Lombok annotation, Hibernate annotation, and exception annotations. Exception annotations. These three, if you complete it, then I will jump into the Spring Boot theory, REST service theory, and Hibernate theory. These three completed, then we go to the POC. Once you need to go to the POC, I think so I need to install MVA, Maven, this build tool. Second thing is Postman for testing, IntelliJ, IntelliJ code development, and Java, JDK. These four and one more also, MySQL DB we need to install. Okay. I think so. One session maybe I'll teach the guys how to install Maven and hmm, Postman. Maybe someone please share the screen. I'll install their system only because I have already installed, right? By to uninstall and install. You can share the screen. One person. I'll install those in the system, all the things. Okay. I'll download from the internet. That guy should have internet faster. Okay, so that all people can understand your system already completed installation also. Okay, this is the thing actually I'm going to teach you guys. Okay, today we will talk about Hibernate annotation, exception annotation, and lab book annotations. Now, what is a exception annotations? Only two types. One is control advice and exception handler. One is at the rate CONTRO controller ADVIS advice exception handler. Now, control advice and exception handler. What is this control advice is nothing but this is the global exception. Global. This is method level exception. Method level exception. That means wherever you have a exceptions, that we need to write in the within that global exception only, so that when your application is calling through logging, all exceptions will be there in this only. They'll get to know which exception, which method is throwing, what exception you want to throw. All the things will be under controller, so that we can see the directly go to the global exception handler. Then it will tell you, oh, this is the exception. We can write it. Now I'll gonna go to the internet. I'll show you how they are writing, so that you can relate to that. Maybe I have a project I wrote in my GitHub. Maybe I'll open our GitHub. I'll go GitHub. Project exception something. Okay. Now see, it is someone. It's not mine. Some other Spring Boot application I went. Other guys. See exceptions. Here exception we have a what is this annotated with the control advice, and each method is annotated with exception handle. Each method, see, this is the exception handle. Then control advice is the global exception. Exception handler is the method level exception, maybe local. Whenever logging that time, what happened? This exception handler, it will, what it will do? Okay, this is the global exception. Okay, this is the resource not found exception. Just now see output, right? If that resource or request only not going to the controller, they might call resource not found exception. They might call not found exception because it's not going to the particular application only. Okay, then what happened? They might send a HTTP not found value, that is the status code. Then message is nothing but a resource not found exception and not found. Maybe we can say this way we can declare a exceptions in Spring Boot or Spring Boot. Exception handler, you have to write. And what is the method name? Get global exception. You can send whatever exception it's coming that. And we have to send a HTTP status code. That is what actually we are going to implement in the real time and as well as in our POC also. Okay. Now we are gonna go to the next annotations. What is this called? Hibernate annotations. Okay, maybe I think so. Time up. Okay, maybe we'll see. RJP. Java persistency API. Hibernate is the ORM tool. So now 90% is using GPA, 10% is using Hibernate because all they are actually done this abstraction. In Hibernate annotations are at the identity, at the table, at the column, at the ID, at the to one, at the one too many, Entity, table, column, ID, one-to-one, one-to-one, one-to-one. These are the Hibernate annotations. What is that mean actually? Hibernate annotation or IP annotation. This DAO, data access layer, the data access layer, and this is the data layer. But service layer, this is service layer. Service layer not able to connect with the data access layer, data layer. We have a one more layer called data access layer. This name indicates data access layer. That means take the data from the database and give it to the service layer, service to controller. Right. Now what happened? Now data access layer, they can use DAO classes, data access object classes, DTO classes, data transfer object. Here they are using DTO. That means whenever getting the DAO, they're converting into the DTO. DTO, they're sending into the service. That is the one way. Or they're using JPA, Java Persistency API. Directly, they're calling the DB using the JPA repository, and that entity only they are giving to the service. Then from service, they can write whatever they want using entity. But whenever the entity they can't manipulate, that is the interacting with the database. Okay. How to use these entities at all? For example, we have a table. Maybe I think so. You have to connect one more link so that I can explain you uh, Hibernate annotation and Lombok annotations. Uh, from tomorrow, we will talk about Spring Boot theory and REST service theory. From Monday, we will start about POCs. Okay, POCs. Please join the another link, which I will send you within 1 minute or 1 second. Let me stop recording.